So let's briefly break down these four political communication orders that have existed throughout American political history. First, we have what I refer to as the elite political communication order. And during the elite political communication order at the very beginning of this country, actually ranging from the colonial era all the way through the early 1800s, most political communication was really conducted face-to-face. This has to do with the print era that we talked about earlier. All political communication that didn't exist in a face-to-face manner was conducted through the printing press and primarily through newspapers. Those newspapers during this time were almost exclusively created for business and political elites. We've mentioned this before, and that's why this is the elite political communication order. If you are getting political information at all through the print medium, you are an elite, right? You are someone who is able to afford a newspaper and also someone who that newspaper is targeting. And ultimately, many of these newspapers were run by parties and were really run or directed by the advertisements, by the companies that were spending a lot of money to advertise in these newspapers. Many of these newspapers were filled with over half of which were filled with newspaper ads. Next, starting in the mid-1800s, we have the mass political communication order. And it's called the mass political communication order because it was really the first mass media that we have in this country. There were several causes. We've mentioned earlier the penny press, which started in 1833, and the penny press was the first time that a newspaper was available on street corners for the price of 1 penny, essentially breaking down that class barrier to who could get this information, and political information was an important part of what existed in these early newspapers. During this time, we also see newspaper delivery being subsidized by the government in a very important act, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. In addition, the telegraph led to the first wire service, the Associated Press, in 1848, which helped to create the first standardized news service across the country, giving some of the same news stories in New York as you would get in San Francisco. And that was a pretty revolutionary way to standardize and mass produce news at this time. It's also, I think, important to note that this is the time period that Alexis de Tocqueville visited the United States. He saw newspapers as such an important part of our thriving democracy, and it was during this early era of mass media development in this country which was really, really important. Next, the broadcast political communication order really displaced that mass political communication order with the advent of radio and later television, and during all of these broadcast formats, you have much more immediate and much more personal interaction between the creator of the content and the viewers. It's a much more personal relationship that people felt when they listened to FDR on the radio, when they watched John F. Kennedy on TV, than anything that they could get just reading through the newspaper previously. It changed what types of information were most persuasive. Image mattered more and more, and that's really an important takeaway from the broadcast political communication order. And finally, we have the information political communication order that we are experiencing today. Starting in roughly the 1990s, this information political communication order is really developed with the advent of the internet. It's not called the Internet Political Communication Order because the reality is that it's all about the incredible growth of information that is available in this current era. It was ushered in by the internet, but it's really all about the instant, unlimited information that is available, this information abundance that we've already talked about, and the incredible interactivity that's associated with web-based tools, web-based information, web-based interaction.